a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. I hope when you decide, kindness will be your guide. Put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. And the world will be a better place. Yes, the world can be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. Yeah, yeah. So I want you to, I'll sing a line and I want you to just sing it right back at me. Very simple. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. Thank you, Jana. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. Help me out. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. Shall we sing it in Spanish? Oh, let's do it. No puedo hacer todo lo bueno que el mundo necesita. El mundo necesita todo lo bueno que puedo hacer. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. One more time. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. Oh yeah.
Our very own Robert Anderson, we are delighted that he could be here this morning, which isn't his regularly scheduled morning, but he was good enough to come all the way from Yuma to be here. Yay, Robert! And he was also close to that tornado that they had out there this past week. So we're doubly glad that he's here.
Half a mile.
Half a mile. He actually even went to his basement, he said. So, well, good morning. We are delighted that you are here. We are delighted to tell you that we are unapologetically inclusive. Look at the amazing diversity that we choose to embrace. Now, they aren't all in this circle in this moment, because you may know that it's summer and people have other things to do, but they are part of ours. So we have people of different ethnic backgrounds. We have people of different sexual orientations, economic backgrounds, a diversity of socially conscious individuals coming together from many faith traditions and from some not any faith traditions, because everybody is welcome at this Unity and at all Unity churches everywhere, and it's part of what we're very proud of. At this point in time, I would invite you to join me in Unity's foundation of faith. There is only one power and one presence in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. And our chaplain for today is Opal, and she will pray with you now and after the service, as will any of our other chaplains.
Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place.
Surely the presence of God is in this place. Divine order, cooperating with divine order, increases my awareness of God. When life seems chaotic and unpredictable, changing in ways that may feel too fast or feel too great, we go within and remind ourselves of the divine pattern of order, which is always present everywhere and in everything and in everyone. Knowing your oneness with all spiritual life, you realize that you are in alignment with divine order. To bolster this awareness and keep it at the forefront of your thinking always, claim order in your body, in your relationships, and in all areas of life. When confusion or anxiety breaks through, do remain calm. Take a deep breath and know that all is well and in order. Know that you are in harmony with life and in the flow of all good, one with God. Know that you are in tune with the order that is always present. From Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9, the human mind plans the way, but the Lord directs the steps. And so it is. Amen.
So it is. I said some words that were cruel. You said some too. Now we're locked in the conflict, me against you. Well, we can't go back, afraid to go on. So I ask this question: when things go wrong, what would love do now to ease the situation? Give me inspiration to heal somehow. What would love do now? I lose myself in the world, believing it's real. Fight my way through by thinking I forget how I feel. Well, I can't see ahead, and the past is gone. Time to ask the question that moves me along. What would love do now to ease the situation? Give me inspiration to heal somehow. What would love do now? When I feel alone, afraid, abandoned or apart, I ask myself these simple words, then look into my heart. What would love do now to heal the separation? Bring me revelation to see somehow. What would love do now to ease the separation? Give me inspiration to heal somehow. What would love do now? What would love do now?
Perfect song, Robert. So, if you were answering the call this week, where would you have gone? Would you have gone to Maui? Would you have gone to where our own tornado was? Would you have gone to a homeless shelter? You know, we can't do everything that needs to be done. But the question becomes, what's yours to do? What's mine to do? Because if we don't begin with that question, it's impossible. It's overwhelming. It's depressing. We wonder how the world's going to survive. And that's not a thought that Unity chooses to hold. We know that we are going to survive. And we know that the world that is coming is better than the world that has existed. We only have to look backwards. Most of us in this room are old enough to, stand up, turn around, and look behind you. And you can see all the amazing ways that the world has improved, gotten better since you were a kid. And I know that you know what I know. We ain't done yet. We haven't yet achieved this perfect world that we envision. So we have to look at the divine order of this world and see what good has come into being. And partially we do that with the title for, or not the title, but my title for today is We Just Need to Wonder About Them. What's their story? So for the past few weeks and for a couple more weeks for August, we're looking at the book See No Stranger. It says it's a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. And I know that some of the word revolutionary is not a word that all of you appreciate because you would rather see us as peaceful people. And we are peaceful. And yet, revolutionary means to do it in a way that hasn't been done before. And that's what we're called to do. How do we do it differently? How do we bring more love to the situation? Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, co-founders of Unity, have been teaching love for 130 some years now. And gee, it hasn't happened. But again, from looking backwards, you can see how it is better than it was. So, as we wonder, sometimes we get stuck. And we get stuck on how do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing, because we all believe that you need to be accountable for your actions. How do you hold people accountable for wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed? Experiencing love, transforming lives. Unity Worldwide Ministry is about that. And if we didn't believe every single person, bar none, I don't care who's in your mind's eye at this moment, include them, has the capacity to be transformed. Now that doesn't mean because they have the capacity to be transformed that we don't hold them accountable for their actions. Can you hold those contradictory beliefs in your mind at the same time? Yes, they did X, Y, Z. And we believe in their capacity to be transformed, and they still need to be held accountable for their actions. I know that that's not too much of a paradox for us to hold. We can all hold that paradox. The trick is, can you remember it? Either when you're dealing with someone who is difficult for you, could be family, friends, could be co-workers, could be me. Can you hold that capacity for someone who's a challenge for you, who has, quote, done you wrong, and at the same time still believe in their potential to be transformed? You know, Unity talks about intention a lot. We hold the intention that this will happen. Sort of like Robert saying last week, tornadoes don't come to Yuma.
Oops.
Oops. So we know that when we hold an intention, it's not a magic wand. Intention is another word for what we call prayer. I hold an intention that each of you are prosperous, thriving, healthy, well-being people. But I have no magic wand to make that happen. So holding people accountable and yet believing in their capacity to be transformed requires us to use something we don't use very often. Wonder. W-O-N-D-E-R, not W-A-N-D-E-R. Don't wander off somewhere. Can you wonder what someone's story is? Can you wonder why or how their lives led them in the direction that they've gone? I have to tell you, in all the babies I have blessed over 30 years, I have never gone, ooh, this is a bad one. It's going to turn out bad. Never. Now, the fact that some of those babies that I blessed are now 30-some years old, who knows? I haven't seen them all, how they turned out. But I didn't hold a single one that wasn't a whole and perfect child of God. So if we have the capacity to wonder what someone's story is, we have a much greater capacity to understand their behavior. Again, pick the worst one you want. I don't care, Charles Manson. I don't think he's alive anymore. But the capacity to be transformed. So what we get to wonder is, why did they do that? Why did they say that? Why do they believe that? What's at stake for them? What's the consequences of their behavior? When is it yours or mine, role to just listen? Can you listen to people say things that you don't agree with and keep your mouth shut at the same time? For me, the answer is sometimes. I can't do it every time. And because of this book, our opportunity is to wonder, who counts as an American? You know, Valarie was born in Northern California. Her family had immigrated there over 100 years ago. And yet after 9/11, one of her friends, they call them uncles, was shot at the gas station he had run for 40 years because he wore a turban, because they thought he was a Muslim, when indeed he was not a Muslim. He had been part of that community all of his life. So shooting someone who's an American because you think they're different from you, it's a hard place to be. And yet, for years I said Sikh, but it's Sixth community, actually were able to forgive the man who shot their friend, brother, uncle, and not only forgive him, but contribute to his family's, his widow and children's well-being. How do we gain that ability? No one should be asked to feel empathy for or compassion for their oppressors. I can't walk up to you and say, how you were wronged, you need to feel compassion for them. But we've learned that we don't need to feel anything at all for our opponents in order to practice love. So how can you, I will use the word loathe, the person who's standing in front of you, and yet at the same time see their humanity, wonder what their story is, Wonder why they're willing to trade their life, in this instance because he was shot, for another, to take another's life. Why? What was it in this particular shooter's background that would cause him to do that? What is in the sixth background that they can love and forgive the man who did it? Do you see, if we wonder about everyone, if we wonder what their story is, it allows us to see how our world can be transformed. Because I have bad news for you. If we done it the way we always have done, if we do it the way we've always done it, it's not going to work. But we can choose a new way. We do not owe our opponents our affection, warmth, or regard, but we do all owe ourselves a chance to live in the world without the burden of hate. Booker T. Washington years ago said, "I shall permit no man," and we include women, shall permit no man, no matter what his color might be, to degrade my soul by making me hate him. We pay the price for hating anybody. And hate is a really, really, really strong word. But we can take it from diss someone, bully someone, be rude to someone. All those words work, but hate is the epitome of what we don't want to do. Booker T. Washington says, "Love is our birthright." The way we can wonder is to listen deeply. Think of our casual conversation. "Hi, how are you?" We don't really want to know because we have things to do. We're just being polite. But what if we really wanted to know? How are you this morning? Did you have a rough night? Did you have a fight? My son Jeff and his wife and the boys sat on an airplane on the runway in Atlanta for 3.5 hours yesterday afternoon. So a 1.5-year-old, a mom and dad, and as Jeff said, in a seat that I can't even put my knees down in front of me. So if you were to ask Jeff this morning, "How are you?" you might get a story if you are willing to listen. See, we don't know what happened last night. We don't know what you went here to get through this morning. But I can tell you this, we care. Deep listening is an act of surrender. Surrender because we risk being changed by what we hear. So you could have this opinion of any of us in this room, but when you heard the story, you know, if Jeff and the boys were here this morning and they were cranky and crying and whining, you might have a lot of judgment about why on earth they would bring their kids to church to blah. Do you know what I mean? You could go there. But then if you knew that they were 3.5 hours late getting in, they'd been on the plane for 6.5 hours by the time they got here, they could have almost flown to Europe from Atlanta. So we just need to wonder, and I'm going to add care, about what somebody's story is. We have to try to understand what matters to them instead of what we think matters to them. So if you're a conservative, you have to care about why liberals think what they think. If you're a liberal, you have to care about why conservatives think what they think. They aren't just thinking that to be a pain in your patootie. There's a reason behind it. Do you care what they think? Last week we talked about the difference between sympathy and empathy. Any of you remember what I said? There's a few in the room who were here last week. We're delighted that everyone who's here this week that wasn't here last week, but does anyone who was here last week remember the difference between sympathy and empathy? I'm going to give you pencils and paper so you can take notes next time. No. Sympathy is when you feel sorry for somebody. Wonderful thing. We sympathize. Oh, I'm so sorry your mom died. I'm so sorry your dad died. Empathy is when you make a casserole and take it to their house and clean it because you know it needs doing. Empathy is when you're willing to do something to change the condition of the person you are empathizing with. Sympathy is, I'm really sorry your son had to sit on the runway yesterday afternoon, and I'm sorry you sat at DIA in the cell lot for all those hours. I'm not going to come and relieve you, but do you see what I mean? Sympathy, empathy. So when you think about the difference in which one you might want to practice, the question might be, what does this demand of me? Now, I feel sympathy for the people in Ukraine. I'm not flying to the Ukraine to help them fight. I'm too old, I'm not strong enough, and that's not my calling. So see, it's not that sympathy is an inappropriate feeling. It's knowing why you choose sympathy or why you choose empathy. Is either of those terms an expansion of whose struggles connect with mine? So in other words, can you honestly connect with what that struggle is? Is it something you can feel deeply? Is it something you're called? Remember, just ministers aren't called, everybody's called. What are you called to do? So are you called to give some money to the guy on the corner? Are you called to go serve at a homeless shelter? Are you called to pack kids or pack the meals for Colorado Feeding Kids so that they have meals over the weekend? Are you called to participate in a little help to help someone who can't do all their house maintenance do something different? See, what are you called to do? And Janice Stanfield's song is perfect. I can't do all the good that the world needs, and I want to tell you, you can't do all the good that the world needs either. It's just, what are you called to do? And how will what you do affect the person you're doing it with, not for? Do you hear the difference between with and not for? For implies, I'm coming to save you and I'll fix it. Once again, guess what? We can't. But I can do it with you. I can sit with you. I can serve with you. I can grieve with you. I can't do it for you. If you'd been sitting in front of me 30 years ago, I think I thought I could. If I told you just the right words, you would be fixed. Doesn't work that way. 1 John chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. How does God's love abide with anyone who has the world's goods, who has stuff, money, and sees a brother or sister in need and yet refuses to help? Goes on to say, little children, let us love not in word or speech, but in truth or action. What opportunity do we have to do something for them? So rushing out to be polite isn't the same. Sometimes our biggest goal is, it seems, is to be clear of discomfort. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to sit in their shoes. It hurts me too much. I'm in a place of not wanting to watch the news much anymore. It hurts me too much. Penny said that a couple of weeks ago when she went to Florida, Florida was as beautiful as it had ever been, but the energy there was different. It hurt her to be in Florida. Now, if Penny would have stayed in Florida, could she change Florida? Not really. So see, what can you do? What can you bring to the situation? Deep listening is about drawing close to someone else's story. In these moments, we can choose to remember that the goal of listening is not to feel empathy. Now remember the difference, not to feel empathy for our opponents or validate their ideas or even change their mind in the moment. That's the hard part. We want to argue with them. We think if they listen to us, they'll change. Our goal is to understand them. And frankly, sometimes I'm guessing, based on my own experience, you don't really want to. Sometimes we don't want to understand them. Because if we actually understood them, we might have to do something differently. Too much, too great, too small, too big. The Cat in the Hat's my favorite reference for that. You remember when the whole living room is destroyed and the kids go, this mess is so great and so big and so tall. Oh, I cannot fix it. I can't fix it at all. We don't have a cat in a hat. Listening does not grant the other side legitimacy. It grants them humanity and preserves our own. It's hard to listen to someone passionately defend something that in your heart you know is wrong. It's hard. The trick is pain that is not transformed is transferred. I'm going to tell you that again. Pain that is not transformed is transferred. If you've ever known anyone who was part of a 12-step program, if you've ever known anyone who's gone to in-depth kinds of counseling, you know that they're there because of transferred pain. Their experience was so painful in life They couldn't cope with it, except with a bottle or a needle or a drug. We work our own shadows because if we don't work our own shadows, we transfer that pain to those around us. Our families, our children, our grandchildren. We don't want to do that. So we transform, which means we get to change, which means everybody gets to change. We can't solve a problem we don't have the courage to name. Bless Charles and Myrtle. We are the only New Thought denomination that teaches a denial and then an affirmation. Now, the word denial means different things in this day than it did 130 years ago. But a denial is simply to say, I see this circumstance, and this circumstance doesn't have any power over me. I affirm, I know that I can transform and change. So I see a zero in my checkbook, but I know that I live in an abundant universe, and I know that prosperity is coming. Denial, affirmation. But that denial is to acknowledge the circumstance that is. We live in a complicated, difficult world. It's all right. It's lunchtime. Nope, not for another 20 minutes. It's okay. It happens to all of us, even me. So wait till your phone rings and you are the one who's speaking. It's true. Some of you are here. So pain that's not transformed is transferred. We can't solve a problem that we don't have the courage to name. This is the problem, and our intention, our prayer, is to do it differently. And when each one of us fails, we just try again. And that's not like getting you off the hook. It's an acknowledge that, like Paul, we intend to do it, but we can't always do the things we intend to do. Our faith tradition cannot be a dead boulder. We had the burden of carrying and changing and fixing things so that we don't pass it on to the next generation. We can turn our faith tradition more. Let me start that sentence over again. Our faith tradition exists to serve us, but our faith tradition needs to be like a river. It's flowing. It flows, and in that flowing, it changes. It becomes different. The truth doesn't change. The water that flows is the same. But when it runs into a boulder in the middle of the stream, it flows around it. When we run into difficulties, we move with them. The next thing that Valarie is teaching is us to reimagine. One of our 12 powers in unity is the power of imagination. That's defined by Charles Fillmore as the faculty of mind, just means our ability, that images form the power to shape and form thought. The imagining faculty presides at the nerve center between the eyes, and through this faculty, the formless takes form. What can you imagine? When we tell you that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, we're telling you that the images you form in your mind shape the world that you live in. So, what if we were to imagine a future? you can close your eyes. What does the future world that you want to live in look like? Are you living in a city? Are you living in a small town? Are you part of a community that supports you? What are your children and grandchildren doing? How do they live? How do they treat the other children? If the thoughts we hold in our mind about the future are creating that future, choose carefully how you choose to see that future. How do we respond to people who have different ethnicity than we have? How do we respond to people who have a different sexual orientation than we have? How do we respond to people who are conservative or liberal when we aren't? How do we solve problems? How does our state and national legislature work? What is our natural environment like? As we spend time thinking about the future, imagining the future, what are you seeing? How do we treat each other? Who are your neighbors? What is your relationship with your neighbors? If you're still employed, what does your job look like? Who are the people you interact with on your job? How do those relationships affect you? We have the power. We have the love. We have the power to change this world. We do it together as a community. We are truly grateful that we live in this beautiful state of Colorado, in this magnificent country of the United States. And we know that every country is magnificent and beautiful. Some of us have visited other countries. We are in awe of what we see. We have all seen the blue marble that we call Earth from the vantage point of space, where it is beautiful and serene. We choose the images in our mind. We choose the images we allow into our mind. We are grateful for the God-given power that we each have. So we end with gratitude. Thank you. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Hallelujah,
I never know what's on the piece of paper that's going to come out of my mouth. I didn't ask you a single question. You didn't have a chance to answer any of them. I apologize for answering all of my own questions. I know. So this is the part in our sanctuary, yes, and in our service, where you have an opportunity to share. You can share with your credit card on our square. You can write a check. You can actually give us cash. A lot of our people are consistent givers, and it just comes in the mail, and it's awesome. So however it is you give, I invite you now to bless these gifts as we send them forth. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
Here's a song that I've known for a really long time, and you're welcome to sing it with me or just listen to me sing. La, da, da, da. open my mouth and my heart. Open my mouth and let me bear gladly the truth sent everywhere. Open my heart and let me prepare love for all people then to share. Silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy will to say. Open my heart, illumine me, Spirit divine.
Thank you. So you see our children on our screen. Those children actually do attend this church. I promise they do, but they're not here today, including my very own grandson sitting there with Scott. So I invite you to bless the children within you and our children wherever they are. Generate a little energy and let's send it out. You are loved, special, and important. We see you and bless the divine being that you are. And we close with our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am that light. The love of God enfolds us. I am that love. The power of God protects us. I am that power. The presence of God watches over us. I am that presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you for coming this morning. Lunch downstairs. Make your phone ring.
Cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. No puedo hacer todo lo bueno que el mundo necesita, que el mundo necesita todo lo bueno que puedo hacer.